Reading from the Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta, Volume 1, Chapter 1, Text 53. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. akṛṣṭa-pacyā bhūmir, vṛṣṭis tatra yathā-sukham, iṣṭāni phala-mūlāni, su-labhāny ambarāṇi. In that kingdom, the earth yields crops without being tilled. Rain falls just enough for people's comfort, and whatever fruits, vegetables, and clothing one desires are easily to be had. Does anyone know, can you see me?
Yes, Maharaj, we can see you.
Am I full, or I'm in just a little corner there?
No, we see all of you.
All of me, but how big?
You're the full screen.
Okay. So, for me to stay humble, I only see a little part of myself. In the Bible, Genesis 3:19, we read that God punished Adam for rebellion by cursing him that outside the Garden of Eden, he would have to till the earth to earn his food, quote, by the sweat of his face. Previously, the Bible tells us Adam and Eve had enjoyed the fruits of Eden without having to farm. The same ideal condition prevailed thousands of years ago in the South Indian kingdom. Rain just fell enough to make good crops, but mostly at night when it would least disturb the citizens. Get me a tissue or something. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kadhamayam Dadati Sapadantikam Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Dhanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Vasudeva Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. So greetings from the Super Soul Farm, and what a nice community. Even it's here early on a Sunday morning, and there's, I thought someone was behind, 7 people coming for the class. Of course, they're really hungry, and Raghunath's in California, so there was no wisdom of the sages. So they're so conditioned to drink the nectar. But it's so nice, you know. It's not like, I came up here many years ago. I was the first one up here. I stayed with Sachi and Kaylee, and you know, it was like out of the way who would come here. You know, I stayed in their bedroom and they slept in the living room. And then some of my disciples, they were just getting married in their 20s, and Sachi gave them employment, and a few people moved up here. And now there's like a burgeoning community. So many Vaishnavas up here. It's wonderful. And it just shows you, I think there's a principle, and the principle is if you open your house to the Vaishnavas, they'll come. It's just a principle. They'll come. And it's a very good principle. In Sanskrit, it's called the Titi Bhagavan. The guest is God. Because material, from Henry to everyone, yes. Good, thanks. There's a principle at Titi Bhagavan, the guest is God, because, material, it's such a, everything's a balance, but material consciousness is, this is my eternal home and these are my eternal relationships. And you can't transcend that, but you have to keep the spiritual goal in mind. So, that culture, a Titi Bhagavan, everything is to kind of shift one out of just self-centered consciousness. I told Raghunath and Kaustubha that they should have this person I met on Wisdom of the Sages who, and I sent the information, they agree. I think they just forgot. But his name now is Hriday Chaitanya, but he walked from France to India about 3 years ago without any money as a principal. And he told me he was in Iran, and if he would go to a house, their culture is, that Allah has come. So a real cult, what is a ritual? A ritual, a ritual can be, you can have something, it's ritual, it has no meaning. But actually, initially, rituals did have meaning. And what ritual was to conform yourself to something higher than yourself. So there's a way you treated guests, there's a way you dealt with people, acharya mam vijanayam navamanyat, you should accept, it says the acharya as my very self, Krishna says. But if you look at the previous verse, in that type of culture, it was your parents, your teacher, everything was the culture. And that's why Kali Yuga is so difficult. Because when people disappoint, then it ruins faith. And without faith, you can't move forward. So you need faith to go beyond your limited frame of reference. And without faith, you can't do that. So Kali Yuga is very, very difficult. But anyway, I'm here in Super Soul Grand Central Station. And as Henry said, it's quite a wonderful place. So let's get to this story that we've been really relishing. And I told you how excited I am that, we probably have another few years with this. And we're just on the first book. But it's a story within a story within a story. So it's Sanatana Goswami praying how to give this Parama Dasha Antim and Parama Top Dasha stage. How to do that. How to communicate that. And he gets the realization, and he tells a story of Uttara after Marge Prickett, after Marge, her son heard the Bhagavatam, wanting a summary of it. No, it tells a story of, he tells the story of Marge Prickett's son, Janamejaya, being enlightened by his guru, and hearing a presentation of the Mahabharata that he never heard before, and wanting a summary of it. And then that summary of it, it's really far. Then the summary of it is the story of Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta, which starts with Marge Prickett's mother coming after he's heard the Bhagavatam, wanting a summary. And then he just, Matri Vatsala, affection for his mother. She's such a great devotee and what she's asking about. So he gives that, And then that's this story. So it's a story within a story within a story. And that story begins with Narada Muni's search for the topmost recipient of Krishna's mercy. And I just like where the story begins, this Kumbh Mela. I mean, no, who has a festival with 30 million people bathing all, and they all fit too. That's the amazing thing. You know, it's just that beautiful. You could see that in India. And those time, all the sages will come. All the acharyas will come. And people go. What a wonderful thing. So he's just overwhelmed with that experience. He's overwhelmed with the place. He's overwhelmed with the people in the place. He's overwhelmed with the day of that place and bathing in the holy river and the sadhus and in front of the deity. And he's just so overflooded with mercy. It just increases his humility more and more. And he's with other sages that are so humble. And when that happens, the thing that you really want more than anything else is sadhu sanga. I had a friend of mine, very advanced, and he told me about the holy places. We don't go to the holy places. I don't go to the holy places because I'm qualified to extract anything from it. I go because their people are, and I want their association. And that's our philosophy. That's the most important thing. That's the one thing. If we have no other qualification, sadhu sanga. I remember this one business lady died in Vrindavan. And she said one thing at the end that was so moving. She said, I'm not advanced, but I know who is, and I serve them. Sadhu Sanga, Sarva Shastra Hoy. Sadhu Sanga, Sarva Sadhu Sanga, Lavamatra, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Lavamatra is a fraction of a second. A fraction of a second of association. Lavamatra. Sarva Siddhi Hoy. It can give all perfection. So that's what a devotee is. Devotee seeks sadhu sanga. And then in the book I was teaching in the evening, Bhakti Loka, the second verse is the things that are favorable. The first verse is vinashyati, what destroys bhakti, and then what enhances bhakti. And it gives these 6 principles. Dadati pritagrinati. You give gifts to Vaishnavas, you accept gifts. Guyamatyachi prichati. You inquire from the Vaishnavas, you explain. And bhunte bojyate chaiva. You give prasadam, you accept prasadam. So that's very favorable, and it's because it's the principle of association. But what association does, it creates a conduit from your heart to the other person. That's why it says don't associate with non-devotees, but it means where we cultivate our intimacy is so important, even among the Vaishnavas, because what they have will transfer to us. So Narada Muni knows this principle. And therefore he shows us what is he seeking? The topmost recipient of Krishna's mercy. Well, Krishna's mercy is everywhere. The topmost recipient of Krishna's mercy is that person is receptive to Krishna's mercy, who opens his heart to Krishna's mercy. And then there's an effect to that, and you see it in their lives. And then you just want to associate with that person, and then you want to associate with these type of wonderful exchanges. That's why me and Rasi Govinda, we like our little ashram in Govardhan. We like to, isn't it wonderful just feeding the Vaishnavas that come, inviting different Vaishnavas and really pleasing them? Patrick, When you're in Govardhan, you'll be on the other side of Govardhan. It's about a 35-minute from where I am. You're going, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one day I'm sure Jai will come over to my place, and we'll definitely arrange the prasadam. And it's just so nice. It just creates that mood. So this is Narada Muni. So he's showing us the main principle in Vaishnavism is anugraha. Anuga is to follow. Is to follow. Follow the example of the great souls. We follow them. So he sees the Brahmin. I gave a summary. There's people here, but I gave the summary yesterday. So I'm just giving a short summary. I do that every class because you get deeper and deeper. So we saw what Narada Muni saw in that Brahmin. I explained that many times. And especially what really shined with this Brahmin is that he had every reason to be proud and to be the controller and enjoyer, but there wasn't a speck of that consciousness in his heart, even though he had so much opulence. I told people the story that when I was thinking whether I should accept disciples or not, I put it before this great sage in Vrindavan. Well, what should I do? And whatever he said, I was ready to accept because I didn't know. And then he looked at me, he said, don't think you're guru, but as a service to your spiritual master. So that's the thing. You can be anything. It's not humble just to be poor. It's not humble just to be rich. It's your consciousness and mood as a service. So he could see, because at the end, what did that Brahmin do? He had all the things that Queen Kunti warned us about that will intoxicate us with false ego. Janmaishvarya Shruta Shri Bir. Our birth, Brooklyn. What a fool. Such a fool. How can I? Janmai Aishvar, opulence. Shruta, our knowledge. Shribi, our aristocracy or sex life. Janmaishvar, Edamana, Mada Puma, Mada. We can become bewildered. Twam akinchana gochara. But the one who doesn't become bewildered is akinchana. Akinchana means something. Akinchana means nothing. He's in the gochara, the line, I have nothing. So he sees this Brahmin with everything, but he's akinchana gochara. He's in the line that I have nothing. Everything belongs to Krishna. He's in that consciousness. And the proof of it is after he does everything, he looks at the deity and says, whatever benefit I gave is now yours. You didn't want any fruit. That's our, what is really this is why the Bhagavatam is such a difficult scripture to follow, because it says dharma projita kaitavo tra paramo namatsaranam satam, because it's for devotees. And when it says what a devotee is, nimatsara, matsara means hate, without hate, but it means more than what hate, it means without fruit of intention. Because whatever little fruit of intention you are is connected to hate. So and therefore the Bhagavatam, Dharma projita kaitava, that kind of religion which you perform to get something in return. Dharma kaitava projita, that kaitava dharma. Like when my father, he had a dressed loft, a dress contractor in Harlem. And he used to tell me these people used to come around for donations. And one guy used to tell me it was called Reverend Sam the Money Man. If you worship that prosperity gospel, that's cheating religion. You know, you worship God to be the enjoyer and the controller. So the Bhagavatam won't give you that. It doesn't give you an inch of that. You really want to follow the wisdom of the sage. These guys are entertaining. They look smart. I know what these guys want. I know what they want. Dharma, kaitava, projita, nimatsaranam satam. And he sees it embodied in this guy. There's such a relationship between the face and the mind. There's psychologists that have studied 330 different facial things that are connected with different emotions. And they don't even have to, they can just see what a person does and tell everything about them. It's obvious. It's obvious that we read minds. And if you can't read minds, you're on the spectrum. That's what the spectrum means. A person can't read minds. They just somehow don't have that ability. And there's people that are on the spectrum in another way. And they can read. So Narada, obviously, he sees this, and then he goes, and then we see what the template of this Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta is. Because every person that he approaches, they have bhakti. They want to be the servant of Krishna. They are happy like this, where mercy flows. They don't want to be the center. And if they have a position, it's as a service to Krishna. If they're the guru, they're not looking at the disciples. I'm guru. They're looking at their guru. I'm a servant. And as a servant of guru, then I teach. So this is the mood. So then we get the template. What the template is, Narada approaches someone, and so you see from the perspective of Narada, from his lens, from his pure heart, without envy. Because you can have envy, then it clouds the consciousness. Hate clouds the consciousness. That's why we have to cultivate forgiveness, because the shadow of resentment will, the whole idea of yoga is to have a pure mind. I gave a seminar in Columbia, how to give up justified hate. The shadow of resentment. You know, there's no shadow of resentment, there's no shadow. And not only that, because there's no material desire in him, he doesn't see people as competitors. All these things cloud the consciousness. That's why the 6 Goswamis were so revered. Dhira, dhira, jana, priyo, piyakaro, nirmatsaro, pujito. Again, same word, nimatsara. They're worshipable. Why? Dhira, dhira. The sober and the skinheads. The gentle and the ruffians. They were dear to both the gentle and ruffians. Why? Nimatsara. Dhira, dhira, jana, priyo. Jana, the people, priyo. Everyone loved them. Jana, why? Nimatsara pujito. And they were worshipful because they had no desire for anything else. So therefore, those people who have that territorial consciousness don't feel threatened by them. They don't feel threatened by them. So Narada, with that pure heart, then he'll approach a Vaishnava, and that Vaishnava doesn't identify and think of himself. First of all, if he's pure, then if you're pure, impurities become prominent. If you're impure, nothing becomes prominent. So you're very pure. So he sees whatever fault he is. He sees, hey, I'm in the material world. How great can I be? He sees also, sarvasya chaham hidi sani vishto, matasmitir jnanam. that everything is coming from Krishna. Your abilities are coming from Krishna. The inspiration, everything's coming from Krishna. That's the material consciousness where you think that you're the doer. Prakriti kriyamānāni gunai karmani sarvasha ahaṅkarā-vṛṣṭis kartaham. I am the doer. Vimudha. Prakriti kriyamānāni gunai karmani ahaṅkarā-vṛṣṭis. That's foolish. You think you're the doer. So he doesn't think he's the doer. He's an instrument. The instrument doesn't become proud. Like, Stephen, you made that incredible door. I never knew who made that door. I thought, like, wow, it slides. I thought, how are they going to put a door there? But but if the knife takes the credit, and then if you take the credit, but if the knife takes the credit, what is that? So we're instruments in Krishna. So he has all this. Not only that, he's seeing God everywhere. Because that's what happens when you're free from Maya. Because what does Maya mean? Not this. You're seeing something what it's not. And what are you seeing? It's separate from God. And why are you seeing it separate from God? So I can be the center, so I can be the controller. That's why karma yoga is important. That's why charity is important. The reason is because when you start giving the fruits of your work to Krishna, then you start seeing things as Krishna's. So the whole Varnashram system is so beautiful and so scientific, that you have your desires, but how do you work through your desires? You give some of the fruits to Krishna, then you start seeing it as Krishna's. So when you see someone who really, from the core of his heart, everything is yours. So anyway, Narada is seeing like that. So every person, it's going to be a progression because each one is going to point to someone else. And what you're going to do is you're going to see the lens of a pure devotee from three perspectives. You're going to see it first from the Vaishnav who says, I'm not a devotee, and he starts to describe this other person. Then Narada is going to go there, and then you're going to see the Vaishnava from that person, from that perspective of Narada's. So you see it from you'll see, like now it's the king. So the Brahmin will say, and he'll describe this king. I'm not a devotee, this king's a devotee. And then Narada will come and see, and then you'll see it from his perspective. And then you'll see the greatness of that person. And the real greatness of that person is his humility, that he doesn't want to be praised. We all want to be praised. Someone says something and they think it's about you. You say, what did you say? What? Can you please repeat that, please? We're on the path of grace. Bhakti is the path of grace. We need the path of grace. But it's so beautiful to have the right ideals and to be able to work towards the right ideals. So anyway, he points to the king. So now Narada, this Brahmin says, look at this king's, and I have an audience here, so I'm going to repeat this a little bit, but it's all. So he says, go see this king. Because this king, he's Sarvabhauma. Sarvabhauma there's different levels. There's Maharaj, he may have a little kingdom. Sarvabhauma, he has many kingdoms. He's got a lot. And Chakravarti is the emperor. So he's Sarvabhauma. He's a very powerful king. And he says there'll be many temples in that place. And not only many temples, but he's so generous, this king, and it's so pure that so many pilgrims and saintly people, they're constantly coming to his kingdom. because they're so welcome. And especially there's one temple in the middle. And that deity is so worshipped, it's alive. It's alive the way, if you're ever in India, one place is Jaipur is a city that's built around Rupa Goswami's deity. That's why it's called the Pink City. The law is that you have to paint everything saffron. So, and the deities, and you won't even see it in Vrindavan, the level of devotion people have for that, for Radha Govinda. And the whole city is going to Mangal Artik. There's like 5,000 people at Mangal Artik. Narayana, you've been there? It's pretty wonderful. What? With Raghunath. It's amazing, right? The devotion. So, and the worship is never stale. It's completely joyous. This is the Brahma saying, which means bhakti means to offer the best. So when you see bhakti, things tend to get more and more beautiful. Like the Krishna Mandir, I always give that example. I've seen over the years that worship. And then on festivals, they spend $6,000 on flowers. The whole temple. And then the courtyard, they have a art system where in water with strings, you can make mosaics on water. It's absolutely beautiful. And it's famous for its prasadam. The dog. It means the dog wants to come in, go out. And if you're here, there's a dog that's very advanced. Anytime he sees me, he pays obeisances. This is in my mind. This is my ego. He pays obeisances. We always used to like the dogs in Vrindavan. I never liked the dogs in New York. But the dogs in Vrindavan, they just kind of like just hang out. It was like, wow, I'd love to be a dog in Vrindavan, just kind of hang out. And the kingdom, this king, he so much was a kinchana, this idea of nothing, that he put all the land in the kingdom legally under the ownership of the different deities. So it means basically the caretakers of the deities. So he had no sense of possessiveness. And what's going to be described here is when you have that kind of piety and sacrifice. You see, and the Bhagavad Gita explains that the way God organized the world is for people who are materialistic, that's why we're in the world, to become devotees. And his strategy is really good because the first principle of spiritual life is sacrifice. Material consciousness is no sacrifice. It's control and enjoyment. So how do you instill in the world the principle of sacrifice? Well, it is the principle of the world. Gita says, Nayam lokas tyagyasya kutanya krusak. Without sacrifice, there's no happiness in this world and the next. So how does he instill sacrifice? Sahayagya prajashrishva parovacha prajapati anena pasavishyadvam esha swishta. I sent forth the men and demigods and by sacrifice become prosperous. So if you want to become prosperous, you ultimately have to perform dharma. And people who are prosperous, let's say Bill Gates or something like that. Maybe he's got like one in his sojourn in the material world of millions of years. He did something good, and he gets 60 years of wealth. That's it. But it is a principle. Sahayagya prajashish. So So if you want prosperity, there has to be sacrifice. Anad bhavanti bhūtāni parjanya anasam. All living entities subsist on food grains, and food grains come from rain, and rain comes from sacrifice. So when a kingdom is pious, it's prosperous. And even India, it's the monsoon season. Rain, that's piety. Rains come at one particular time. And I heard from people, a friend used to live in Georgia, they said, he grew up, the rains would come at night. It was regular. I was used to America. Anytime there could be rain, you don't know when. I like it in India. Okay, this is the rainy season. The monsoons come. Of course, they're becoming impious also. But then things become prosperous. So he's saying in this kingdom, it's so prosperous. And then it gave the example of the Garden of Eden. That when things are actually lush, you don't even have to farm. Farming is really, I guess, a purification. When the rains are going to come, they don't come. And then here, the planting season before May 15th, it's going to freeze. And then you plant May 16th and it freezes anyway. So this is the vision. So he's also thinking, and he's seeing this king. And then it says, swaswa dharma krita sarva shrukinya Krishna-katha prajastam anuvartante maharajan yathā-sukham. The citizens all happily follow the king as if they were his children. They perform their own social duties and are devoted to Krishna. So why does a king have opulence? Because people are materialistic and they tend to follow rock stars and athletes, and they develop that submission. So the king would have accoutrements of power. That was part of it, his accoutrements of power. He may be completely detached, but he has palaces and harems and so he may be detached. But more than that was his character would command respect. And it said, for one whose senses are controlled, then automatically the ministers, the people, the family, everyone is following. It's just natural. Even see that in this world, because the greatest strength is humility, because humility is the strength to resist the false ego. And there's nothing more difficult than resisting the false ego. So the king is always prideless, worshiping Lord Achyuta with service as a menial servant would perform. He pleases all people and is dear to the Lord. So there's a principle in Nectar of Devotion that if you're a big person, a businessman, an acharya or something, and you use money for worship, let's say you have a deity and you get someone else to do it, you don't get the credit. And not only that, the person, his faith is that the highest thing is to serve God, not to be the enjoyer and controller of the world, but to serve God. So he does it personally, and that's what we'll go to the Rath Yatra, and one of the big things was the king Prataparudra. He did menial service, and Lord Chaitanya would never see him, because in those days, the king had to be Vishayi. He had to be an enjoyer. Because for the citizens, you can even see it in the monarchy in England. It's losing a little bit of glitter, but still, people are royalists. It's very attractive. So it helps. And if the person actually has character, he uses the respect that people have for power to increase that respect by using his power to serve the people. So this king was served, and it was from the bottom of his heart. It was so. I'm a big controller, but there's one thing I like to do. I love to serve prasadam. Love to serve prasadam. I think that's also because I'm a controller, because I think I know how to do it better than anybody else. And I can't tolerate if it's not done properly. I know how it's done. Right? And Ryan, you were there in the Puri Yatra, right? How the prasadam was served. And I'm looking. If someone puts down that bucket and starts to convert, no. It's a system. I've been written up how to serve prasadam. There's a system. Everybody sits peacefully because they know it's going to come around. All the prasadam is going to come around. And it's wonderful that Jagannath Prasad, it's like, we have that feast every day. Now, where we're up to today, he always tries to satisfy the Lord. He himself performs Sankirtan before the deity, chanting the Lord's names composed in various attractive arrangements. So, kirtan has 4 qualities. The best kirtan has 4 qualities. It should be deep from the heart. It should be melodious. It should be appropriate for the occasion and time. And shanai, it should be done slowly. And slowly means the tempo should never exceed the bhava. The tempo can increase when the bhava increases. But shanai, tad anurupita means appropriate for the occasion. That's a little technical what that means. But there's melodies for times of the day, there's songs for different occasions. And manogya, melodious for the mind, and deep from the heart. So the king, he's singing these songs, and he's singing them so melodiously, and he's singing them so deep from the heart, and he's singing these compositions, and he dances and he sings wonderful songs, and he plays instruments. And his sons, wives, brothers, grandsons, priests, servants, ministers, and other subordinates, they're all taking part. So the person is known by the people who, a leader is known by the qualities of the people who are subordinate to them. So the president will be known by the nature of the people in the country. The king will be known by the citizens. The family will be known by the children. So now, this is all like, oh my God. Now, Narada is describing this, not the Brahmin. These good qualities arise from his devotion for Krishna. How many of them can I count, describe, and be aware of? Because he's so fixed in Krishna. It's just, he's just flowing. Everything moves. Remember when I first saw Prabhupada, I hitchhiked to the airport, and there was no TSA. And we went right into the airport. And Prabhupada described his beautiful American boys and girls. His disciples were also beautiful, and they were in robes. And the leader, boy, the temple leader was so charismatic. Everyone followed him. And he told the devotees to chant melodiously. Chant very melodiously for Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada came down, and the devotees were chanting. And then Prabhupada just moved his hand and acknowledged. So the qualities, they just imbue the person because he's moved by love. He's moved by love. The consciousness is called tadatmaka. Tadatmaka means one with, like you put an iron rod in fire, the iron rod becomes fire. So the mind of the pure devotee, his mind is love because the loving energy is in his consciousness. So his mind becomes love. It becomes prema, bhakti, and therefore he's moving by that. So he's describing this, and now go. Parikshit said, Narada then went to the country of the best of the kings to see him. Wherever Narada went, he found the people absorbed in festive worship of the Lord. So he just saw everyone was just, going around. It was devotion. They were all just singing, and there were festivals, and it was so beautiful. And Narada arrived at the capital, vibrating his veena with delight, seeming greater splendor than the Brahmin had described. He approached the king and spoke. Generally, what we do, what we describe to someone, it never actually equals when you get there. But the only thing is in devotional activities. It's always better than people could describe. And I know we had our Puri Yatra this year, we had A+, 6 A+ kirtaniers. We had the best really renowned and really pure. And the prasadam was just, the thing about Jagannath prasadam, it's the most digestible food in the world. And we get the best. We eat that Jagannath. But I can only, you have to experience. And it's the same thing whether you go to Italy and people, oh, it was so great. I was in Italy, so great. But when you get there, it's always better when it's described, if you go in the proper way. So he arrived, and then he approached the king and spoke. Narada said, you are the real recipient of Krishna's mercy. After all, your king is so opulent. Your kingdom is opulent. It has the best citizens, endowed with the most excellent character, religiousness, prosperity, knowledge, and devotion to God. And then Narada embraced him again and again and again. And he's describing the king and his praises. And he's singing. Narada's like singing with his veena, and he's embracing him. And he's saying, you're the best, you're the greatest, you're the greatest. Like they went to one disciple, Prabhupada was in I think it was in Japan or something, and he like defeated a Mayavadi. So then he had this disciple from New York, and he was a sannyasi, and he's what I call a what you see is what you get person. It's like devotion, but I can't explain it, but they're very real. So he's massaging Prabhupada at night, and then he has this vision that Prabhupada's like the heavyweight champion of the world. And he just like knocked out this Mayavadi. And he's massaging him, and he says, Prabhupada, you're the greatest. Prabhupada said, no. He said, I'm just a devotee. Or someone said, Prabhupada, you're such a great devotee. Prabhupada said, no, devotee is not ordinary thing. Whereas it's not the consciousness. So the king, that ruler of the vast region, then worshipped the topmost sage and humbly replied, his head bowed down in embarrassment by the weight of hearing his own praise. The king said, this is the last sentence today, O sage among the demigods, I am a human being with a short lifespan, little opulence, and little to give to others. I have no independence. I am completely attacked by fear, ruled by the threefold miseries of life. I should not even deserve Krishna's word that in the future he might show me his mercy. why do you wrongly consider me an object of his compassion? And then he's going to point to someone else. So if you're going to
Haribol, Maharaj. Haribol, everybody. Hi, Narayani. Hope to see you soon. Thanks for wonderful.
What did you appreciate?
There's two one-liners that really just this whole, the bob of humility, the two button quotes I feel like today where the instrument doesn't become proud. It's like the fork, the pen doesn't become proud. And this other one you said about that, humility is actually strength. The humility is the strength to ward off Maya. And that's such a wonderful way to look at humility, that it's actually the strongest position you could be in. So thank you, Maharaj. Those are really wonderful, illuminating points today.
Great. Anybody else like to say hello?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, it's Madhurya Radhika. I have another button quote. You had a lot here today. Without sacrifice, there is not happiness in the world and in the next. And to piggyback on Jamuna with humility, for those whose senses are controlled, then automatically everyone is following. And I thought those were just such really beautiful lessons. So thank you for class today, Maharaj.
Thank you. Anybody else say hello? Nantha?
Hare Krishna. Oh, sorry.
Okay. Indira?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. When you started it off by saying it's your consciousness and mood, and I have to constantly remind myself of that. Everything I do, it's really the mood that I'm doing it with. Even when you always tell us when we're chanting, please engage me in your service, but it's the heart and mood of the service. I have to, yeah. Thank you.
Ramatirtha, I saw you there. Don't hide.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, sweet. I really like the connection to the Bhāgavatāmṛta. What Gopi Pranadana did was wonderful. And Sanatana Goswami, we just don't have enough of him in the movement. So thanks for this series. This really helps me a lot.
All right. It's great to see you.
Very good. Highball.
You ever read Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers? Mm-hmm. That's the person. Oh. Okay.
I'll tell you, you talked about Prabhupada's humility. So I once kind of challenged Prabhupada mildly. I said to him, well, a pure devotee shouldn't have karma and you're getting sick. What does this mean? So it was interesting how Prabhupada answered. At first, he took the humble position. And then he said, but there's a point you're making. And the reason I get sick is because I took too many disciples and they could be nonsense.
Thank you.
All right.
Samantha?
Hi, Haribol. Sorry. Thank you for your talk this morning. I don't have anything intelligent to say except thank you and hello to all those people. I love everyone in that room. Good to see their faces. Have a great retreat. And thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Okay, Haribo. Okay, anybody else like to say hello?
Hare Krishna, Gurudev.
Haribo.
I have a question, Guru Maharaj. When you were talking about the faith, you said that only faith can help you to go out of your frame of references and step out. Yeah. Can you please elaborate on that?
Elaborate it. Yeah. We don't see reality. We're limited, and we know that because we grow. And then we're always learning new things. So the truth doesn't necessarily conform to the way we see the world. And truth is very heavy, because truth may tell you that something you're attached to you shouldn't have, and something that you have and something that you don't have you should take. So the truth is not an easy thing to accept, to change your own kind of view.
Mm-hmm.
So if William James, he wrote the book Variety of Religious Experience. He said it best. He said, if a young boy wants to understand that a young girl loves him, he first has to have the face she does. Otherwise, he'll never find out. So you have to go beyond your own frame of reference and what a teacher is a teacher who is one who speaks to you through your own frame of reference to increase your understanding and knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Jay Shirade?
Thank you.
You know how much I had to teach you.
You still have a lot to teach me.
Hey, Ram Sadowski. Haribo. Okay, Haribo. Anybody else? A few more people say hello.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Tota Gopinath here.
Thank you, Shri Radha.
Okay. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, it's Govinda.
I'm Bṛhad. Thank you for class.
Thanks for class.
Greetings from Super Soul.
Yeah, wish I was there.
Okay. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Okay. Yudhisthira. Haribo. Nice to see you.
Haribo. Thank you for your class.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, great.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for class.
Who else?
Hare Krishna.
Amala, Hare Krishna. Good to see you. Hare Krishna. Okay. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Yavat-sundari.
Haribo, Catalina. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Lovely. Yes.
Oh, that's, see Radhika? She sometimes comes to the Echo Village. Catalina, good to see you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Maharaj.
That's from Colombia, and this from Iran. Haribo, nice to see you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Okay. Anybody else?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the class.
Okay. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hey, this is also from Iran.
Haribo. Thank you for the class.
Wow, what's happening in your country that you can actually get good internet? I thought they cut it off.
Yeah, sometimes it happens. Yeah.
Okay, anybody else?
It's good now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
One more?
you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Rupa, Haribo. I think everyone's...
Hare Krishna.
Bhakti Devi, Haribo.
Hi, everybody.
Okay. Hare Krishna Maharaj, this is Hemalata Radha. Hi, everyone.
I think there's so many people coming on today because they know the people here and they want to say hello. Haribo, Hemalata, great to see you.
Thanks so much for class.
Some of the people that are going on that Dandavat Parikram, they're here too. There's like 3 or 4 people that are going. Amazing. Okay, Haribo. Good. Anybody else want to say hello to everyone?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Hare Krishna, everyone. This is Krishna-katha. Thank you greatly for the class. I also love very much about humility, that it is the strength to resist our false ego, and also that envy and hate cloud our consciousness. So impressive. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Gail here.
Okay, Gail, what's your question?
No question. Just saying no.
Okay. Wow. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for class. It's Isabel.
Haribo.
Haribo.
Great.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, one more. Okay, let me just go and see who's there. Okay, great. Okay, we'll go now. Vanchakalpatubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo